my company is going to be disrupted, likely through technology more than anything. So if I don't figure out how to eliminate my client's need for me, I will be eliminated by someone else.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted online platform for the best keynote speakers in the world. And I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. Hey folks, thanks so much for dropping by. In today's episode, I sit down with event industry expert Rob Bezdjian to explore the cutting-edge world of event management and the strategic approaches that are reshaping the landscape of the industry. Rob's company, Zaven Global, is revolutionizing the way events are organized by offering a full-service, concierge-style approach for clients. He calls it full-service lite. Basically, Rob explains that as a third-party planner, he provides a range of services, including securing room blocks, arranging discount airfare codes, managing event operations, and consulting for large corporate clients with internal event teams. And get this, at little or no cost to his clients. It doesn't get any lighter than that. Actually, Rob would not call his clients clients. Rather, he prefers to call them partners. In fact, that's his own personal mantra. No clients, just partners. And it's what he believes sets his business apart from others in the industry. All he wants is to add value and facilitate fabulous experiences for the event participants. And as our discussion progresses, Rob delves into innovative concepts such as fancations and Brandcations, which involve leveraging the influence of social media personalities and brands to create unique, engaging experiences for attendees and to promote brand loyalty. And he provides really good examples of each to illustrate the concepts. Overall, the episode provides insightful perspectives on event planning, collaboration, and the future of the industry, offering valuable advice and thought-provoking ideas for both young professionals and established industry veterans alike. So let's get right into it. Here's my conversation with the one and only Rob Bezdjian. Rob, for the folks who are not familiar with Zaven Global, tell us a little bit about the company and what exactly you do.
Yeah, perfect. An independent third-party planner. I call it full service lite. So you have sourcing companies like Helms Briscoe or Prestige that just kind of help secure the room block. I'm securing the room block for clients. We're doing discount airfare codes. We have vendor relationships with operation companies. If they need to do booking airfare directly for the clients, having a call center type feature, or managing the actual operations of the client. So a lot of the clients I work with are large enough to where they have an internal event team. So I, at a high level, kind of integrate into their operations to make sure they're going in the right direction, to give my advice, to kind of act as a consultant along the way. The benefit for that is that I can work with clients that are so large that I probably wouldn't be able to work with them otherwise, which is good for me. And it's good for the client. They're not having to hire somebody and paying them $300,000 a year to help manage their overall events. So it's kind of a win-win.
So interesting. So as a third-party event planner, so you're working in conjunction with the event planning team at, let's say, a big corporation. Mm-hmm. And what you're able to do that maybe they can't do on their own is be able to find all those discounts, zero in on the logistics, let them focus on more important things that are going on in the meeting as opposed to a lot of the DMC stuff, a lot of hotel bookings. Is that where you're bringing that win-win to the client?
You're absolutely right. They focus on the nitty gritty. I focus on the high level stuff and bring it to them. So We're Delta Airlines, United Airlines, for example. We do discount airline codes. So a lot of attendees now are booking their own airfare independent of working inside the company. They're using their own points, they're using their own business cards, and they're booking that. So we provide a discount code that just goes right on there in their search box, and it can be savings of $50 to $200 per ticket, for example. So that's a win to the client. It doesn't cost them anything. As an organization, I get 1 for 40, which means that every 40 tickets that are booked with that discount code, Zaven Global gets a free ticket from the partnering airline. So it's a win for me as well. So it's a value add to the client without a charge. It's great for marketing. Hey, this is something I do that no one else does, and I haven't found a competitor that does that yet. And then in regards to actually like kind of the room block, which is the major expense for most organizations for their events, I have the relationships with the tourism bureaus, the CVBs, the DMCs, the hotels. I provide that economies of scale, not just in operational excellence, but also in negotiation. You do so many programs, you work with the same sales staff, they kind of go above and beyond for you, which is also a win for the client that they might not necessarily be able to get on their own or through someone else.
Your company's mantra is no clients, just partners, which I think is a great mantra. Just elaborate a little bit on that. And what does that mean to you? And how does it set your business apart from others in the industry?
Yeah, I think just as by way of background, we've all been sold to, right? And that's not necessarily the best feeling to have if you're looking for goods or services. And sometimes we're sold things that we don't necessarily need. And the only person that benefited was the person who was selling us something over the long term. So the mantra, no clients, just partners, is to really kind of flip that on its head to where at the end of the day, the corporate client wants to make sure that participants, they're the real clients, right? The participants who work for a corporation and want to have a fabulous meeting or incentive trip or a trade show, they are the end customers. So the corporation is the one that helps facilitate that on their side. I help facilitate it on my side and for the rest of the travel industry. And we partner together, the corporation, my quote unquote clients, and I, to make sure the end participant has this fabulous time. And on my side, if we talk about, each partner in the travel industry as being an arrow and a quiver, once again, we bring to the table dozens of DMCs that we have relationships with, the hundreds of venues throughout the world, or thousands, and the tourism bureaus, the gifting companies, the people that help manage and operate events, the airlines. There are so many partners in the industry. And if we kind of think of that mindset of as we're all working in conjunction together, it's a lot better than thinking of each of us as a siloed entity that's trying to sell goods and services. It makes it less personable. You don't have the same goal. So just having that mindset, even individually and then through the company, when that's the mindset, people can feel it. It's not something you have to convince. It's not something you feel like you're selling. It's, hey, I can add value. I want to partner with you. And I hope, and I should be, adding more value than my next closest competitor. And in that case, it's a win-win. And it's not selling at that point. It's facilitating an end goal, which is an amazing event.
Yeah. So just putting that hospitality layer on this sort of business model, you are almost offering, one way of saying it, a concierge service, collaborative concierge service. It's white glove. We're going to take care of you. We've done all the research. So why not partner with us? And we're happy if you're happy. If your participants or your attendees are happy, you're going to be happy. We're going to be happy. So as you said, it's a win-win. Going back to innovation, I know that you have also another saying that I think maybe we were discussing this when we met. A good mantra is if you want to keep your job, you need to eliminate your job. And I think I've heard that. I think that's a business mantra that's been going around lately. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit more? And what does that mean? And how does it apply to the event industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So a cool thought experiment that we can kind of use is, let's imagine that there is no event industry. There are no global events, and this is something we create from scratch. Would it look exactly the way it does today? Would we have a system where, airline services are siloed, registration and marketing is siloed, the hotels are siloed, the DMCs are all siloed, where you have to have a different contract, a different payment, a different relationship to help facilitate an event? Is that how we would build it from scratch? Probably not. We would probably figure out a different and more efficient way if we were building this industry from day one. So I like to think, well, the eventuality of any industry is going to be, if you built it from scratch at any given time, you're going to build it probably more efficient and probably with the most benefit for the largest number of parties. So in that sense, I see the future, and this is just me, but I see the future as an eventuality of our industry is combining these services all together to where you have one contract, one SLA, service level agreement, one means of payment to run the whole event soup to nuts, whether it be AV, speakers, food and beverage, the venues, the airlines, the DMC, the excursions, and any other bells and whistles that you can put together. I see the eventuality of a platform like a Priceline.com in that disruptive sense that it took place, 25 years ago when it started going after the mom and pop travel agents. An eventuality is that this may be coming to our industry as well. So with that thought process, a lot of us are going to be out of a job. It's certainly the third parties, right? My company would be out of a job. So if I want to keep myself in this industry, I have to either be the best at what I do so that the first ones that get eliminated are always the ones that maybe aren't adding the value. So I need to either focus on that aspect, or I need to focus on eliminating what I do as a whole to better the end use client, because it's an eventuality anyway. And it might take 10 years, it might take 20 years, it might take 50 years. But my company is going to be disrupted, likely through technology more than anything. So if I don't figure out how to eliminate my client's need for me, I will be eliminated by someone else. So that's kind of the thought process behind it. And when we think that way, we can think of ways that we can add value that others aren't. And that value might just be purely financial. We'll be able to do more with less. Or it might be, hey, we can enhance it in a totally new way of thinking that no one has really ventured down before.
So what are some of the things you're thinking about in terms of, hey, let me stay ahead of the curve right now. Let me start offering these services now so that they can't replace me with just technology. How do you approach that now?
Right now, our current business model, which changed from the pandemic, like I mentioned, is we're a no-fee service. And you have a lot of this with sourcing companies that, the Helms Briscoes of the world that will go out and help secure a room block, and they just work off of commission. With Zaven Global, like I said, we add on top of that basic structure, the basic sourcing, to where my consulting services are always free for a client. We also do the discounted airfare. We also have relationships with other logistics companies or service providers, like Allfly would be one that helps book the airfare or builds a technology front-facing UI so individuals can book their own airfare. Do the discount codes, client gets a discount. And then also with the DMC services, I get commission on the back end for a successful event. So I've figured out ways to add benefit to the client. They're not signing a big contract with me. There's no markup for my services. And because I'm independent, I don't have to split those commissions with anyone else. And a lot of the other independents usually work with another third party to where they might need to split that commission. And that really kind of hits their internal margins or how much they make for an event. I can add more and use more as marketing on my end, knowing that I'm working with a larger size client and that I get effectively 100% of the commission I generate. So that is one way. And then innovative through ideas might be another. So part of the reason why I left Morris back in 2016, early 2017, I had been on a FAM trip. And a FAM trip, for your listeners, is a familiarization trip. It's where a venue or a tourism bureau will invite an event planner out to the destination or to the venue so that they can get an experience with it, usually get wined and dined, so that you can bring business to the area.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm very familiar with the FAM trip. I used to date a woman who was in the industry, and we went to some beautiful FAM trips. I kind of miss that. Going to the Ritz in Half Moon Bay or going to an exclusive resort in California, Napa Valley. So yes, I'm very familiar with FAM trip, and I hope everyone who's listening has experienced that as well. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, absolutely. They're phenomenal. So I was on a FAM trip and it was at a resort in Mexico. And while I was there, it was at night and I was in the hot tub. And there were three other very good looking people that were in the hot tub taking more pictures than I have seen anyone take of themselves in my life. And this is 2016. And I turned around and I said, hey guys, what's going on? This is, hundreds of pictures they're taking and in posing in with very subtle changes to their posture and whatnot. They turned to me as if I should know who they were. And they're like, we're influencers. And they mentioned their names. And they said, we got invited out here by the resort to help promote. And I'm like, okay, this is very, very interesting to me. And they told me how many followers they had, and it was hundreds of thousands each. And I asked them, how does this work? Oh, well, we get paid. We're at this resort now. We go to 2 other resorts. We post exactly with the hashtags and the sayings that the resorts want us to, and then they pay us. And they told me how much they got paid, which I was blown away by. So immediately my business brain started thinking, and I'm like, oh, well, social media influencers obviously are there to promote, and they have huge fans. And the name of the concept didn't come to me at that time, but a fancation, where influencers are bringing 50, 100, 200 other fans to a destination to actually have a fancation. And this only works with some influencers, obviously not all of them. But if we thought to ourselves, if Michael Jordan posted on his Instagram and said, I'm going to this resort on this day, who wants to come? It's easy to think that that event would be full in moments, within minutes, at probably a large premium. So immediately this concept did not leave my brain. So that was kind of my claim to fame when I first started Zaven Global. Is I approached some partners who were having a hard time getting, at that time, millennials, now it'd be Gen Z, to participate in their venues. I worked with popular influencers, and then we would create these fancations for their fan base. A concept that I haven't yet done, but I'd like to do, is a brandcation. So I'll kind of give you an example. In 2019, Taco Bell had a concept, and this is actually, at least internally in my brain, and I was trying to pitch it to Reebok at the time, but they did a Taco Bell hotel in Palm Springs, California, where they took over a small hotel property, and they had pool floaties that were salsa packets. The pillowcases were salsa packets. This event they posted, and it sold out in 4 minutes. And if you Google Taco Bell Hotel, it still comes up. It looked like a phenomenal event, but what a cool concept where the brand is actually marketing itself. And then you have all the participants, and this worked the same for my fancation concept. Instead of having, a few influencers post about a destination, you run an event that brings in revenue to a destination. And then you have 200 participants that are posting on Instagram about the event. And the influencers, at least with my concept, were posting to get people to attend the event. So the same concept works with a brandcation. At Taco Bell Hotel, you have 500 or 600 people there that are posting about this wonderful experience. There's photographers, there's a bunch of games, they turn it into a YouTube little video. What a great concept to get people that are engaged with your brand. And you have to think to yourself, if you go to the Taco Bell Hotel and you had the time of your life as an attendee and you paid to go there, does it make Del Taco a little less appealing the next time you want to get Mexican food? Probably. Probably Taco Bell, for those participants, is probably going to have a little bit more pull. So those individuals are going to be brand loyal. So you can expand this to Lululemon, who has a very strong following now. If you had a Lululemon resort for a week in Hawaii, where every attendee gets, new Lululemon swag and it's fitted, are they ever going to buy Nike again? I mean, you have to think that the likelihood of them being brand loyal is very, very high. And you can put these together with either a low cost to the brand or potentially no cost, because in our industry, and I run these events, there's economies of scale when you take from an individual traveler's vacation price versus doing a buyout of a property. So there's huge scalability in lowering the cost for the group. And if the brand just wants to resell this as a regular vacation to their fan base, individual travelers, and I learned this, want to travel with people that are like them. The mass market does not want to travel with random people that might not fit their ideals or their personalities. They want to travel with people that are like them. They want to travel in a tribe or with people that they have some affinity towards, to where it feels like they're traveling with friends or family, even if they haven't met these people before. So I think there's an opportunity to expand those affinity groups into the brand sphere.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, we have seen these cruises. That's the big thing that we've been seeing, is like-minded people going on a cruise. Sometimes I've seen it with comedians. That's my background. They'll have a bunch of comedians. The idea that you can meet these people and hang out with them is a great concept. And I know that a lot of the brands, the brand loyalty, feeling like you're part of a team. I know Heineken and all their brands have been doing that for years, and probably all the other ones. They have fan-based events that you go to. And as you said, there's like-minded people there. You're excited to be connected to it. When you mentioned Lululemon, I'm sure that week we'll have, different fitness classes, different yoga classes. What a great idea. Are you going directly to brands now and proposing it, or how can you scale this or modify it for an event for, let's say a conference or an association?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the Brandcation concept, I think that's a little bit to be determined. I'm still figuring out how to work with a huge brand in that capacity. So we'll keep you updated there. But as far as bringing it to current events, so I think I might have the rare opportunity where I've ran, my own events for hundreds of people based, it's a Zaven global event and we're working with an influencer. Some of the influencers I worked with were sponsored. I worked in the athlete sphere, so they were sponsored athletes. So I had a Red Bull sponsored athlete and a Reebok sponsored athlete. And just because I don't have a fear to call anyone at any time, I called their marketing departments and I said, hey, I'm working with one of your sponsored athletes. I would love to see if you would be willing to help co-sponsor this event. So they both did. So Reebok gave me heavily discounted pairs of shoes, in which case we went to the event. Each participant got a free pair of shoes. And then with the athlete, there was a meet and greet where the athlete would actually sign the shoes. So kind of a cool concept. So Reebok co-sponsored the event. They wanted us to make sure we gave them a shout out on Instagram for, their participation, which actually made Zaven Global look really good because who am I at that, especially at that time? I was a new guy in the industry. No one had heard of my company. No one had heard of me, but here I am being tagged. My company's being tagged in the same post as Reebok and Red Bull, as hundreds of people are posting and are getting tens of thousands of eyeball views and likes on these posts. It was a very clever way to integrate these outside brands for my events.
Yeah, talk about another win-win situation. Your head must be spinning with ideas. I mean, talk about the sky's the limit. I mean, you can definitely scale this to other brands. Do you wake up every morning excited with, I got a new idea? I mean, why can't this apply to every single brand that's out there?
Like I said, I think brands is the future. I focused a lot on the influencer market and I tried really hard to make that work. And I think when I started the influencer concept, we were kind of getting towards the peak of the influencer market. And I think we're probably going downhill a little bit, but I think the brands, I think it's early. I think we're starting to see brands like Crocs that's teaming up with McDonald's and some of these. And, I wore Crocs when they first came out and it was a nothing brand for 15 years. They were kind of like, old people boat shoes that were just like really comfortable. And I liked them. I wouldn't go out in public with them, not for $1 million. They were like my gardening shoes or water the lawn or lounge at the house. And now they're mainstream because they thought outside the box. They recognize the power of brand. And now their brand is as popular as the other brands that they were teaming up for special editions or whatnot. So I think travel has a long way to go in that sphere. And I think people, especially brands, don't realize the power of their brand for marketing themselves. When an event can have the same type of traction as hiring an influencer, and maybe it's we're not even talking a fraction of a cost. It could be accretive to earnings. They could be making money off of their events. Just a case in point, when I was working with the influencers, Kim Kardashian posted that she had gone to the Maldives. Well, no one at this point in time, no one is going to remember that Kim Kardashian posted that she went to the Maldives in 2017, and no one's going to remember what hotel she went at. And I would have to look it up to remember myself, but I can tell you she went there. And once again, she's too big to ever want to work in that sphere. But imagine if she would have taken fans there or partnered with a brand to take some elite fans there, those people would have remembered it forever. And if brands start doing this at scale over time, you could have 15 years in the future, you could have a time period where 20% of the population that travels has done one event with one brand or one affinity group. We'll kind of expand this to just affinity travel. You could have it to where there's, a large percentage of the entire industry that is traveling just because there are affinity programs out there that get like-minded people together, and brands can be a part of it.
It's funny you mentioned the Maldives. I was training early this morning with my trainer who lives next door. A little shout out to Mr. Bill Wood. And he was just coincidentally talking about a friend of his who just came back from the Maldives for a 10-day or a 7-day vacation. So I was like, when these coincidences happen, I know several years back, you were awarded the Connect Corporate 40 Under 40 Award. So what advice do you have for young professionals looking to make a significant impact in their chosen field? What can they learn from you?
I would say focus on being a generalist. So there's a saying that people think the saying of jack of all trades, right? And master of none. But I think the full quote goes, and I actually have it up here. It's a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So I think generally speaking, I think the world kind of pushes people to focus on one small area to add value in their life. I think I naturally just have this curiosity from a large perspective to figure out, I don't want to be an expert at the best tires for a race car. I want to be a generalist and know where every part of that car goes, because if I ever find myself in, when you're a generalist, you can kind of see how pieces can connect that might not be obvious to someone that just kind of focuses on not seeing the forest through the trees, so to speak. So I would say for young people, learn all aspects, learn the contracting portion and what goes into the sales contract for your clients, even if that's not part of your role, even if you're in operations. Definitely for salespeople, it makes it a million times easier to sell something if you know how something works, which has been a great benefit to me because I understand how airlines integrate into the travel program, how registration happens. I know all of the different competing platforms to do registration, the vendors to connect to. Being well-traveled is always a key as well. If you only have experience in the Caribbean, it's going to be really hard to sell a program in Europe. So there's a lot to be said about knowing a little bit, at least surface level, about a lot of things. And then as time goes on, experience just kind of gets us deeper and deeper into what we do. So for someone starting out in their career, we all have our roles. We all get paid for a specific function, but there's no harm in learning as wide of an area of expertise as we can get. And that happens over time, but it certainly helps as you get on in your career.
Yeah, no, I think that's some great advice. I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation because it got me thinking about, just being able to look at things a little differently and come from a different perspective. And you definitely have done that. You created an event company, a third-party event company that can seamlessly work as almost a concierge service for these major companies to help them with finding things because of your relationships you have with the DMCs, with the CVBs, with airlines, so that you can bring value there and not add a cost a lot of times to them. You also are out there seeing what's available. So you're a great source, for that as well. And then I like listening to some of these innovative ideas like the fancation and the Brandcation. I think the Brandcation is definitely something that people have been exploring either through influencers or through famous celebrities having these like-minded cruises and events like that. I think you're right. I think the future is that. And we learned about, a little bit about FAMs. Now, technically, we kind of met on a FAM. Was that a FAM for you to come out when I met you at Teneo's hospitality event, or a slight FAM?
Yeah, I think that's a conference with FAM components, which I think is brilliant on their part. That was one of the best ran events.
Wasn't it amazing?
It was phenomenal. The quality of the speakers, the quality of the vendors there on my side, the venue, the activities, the ability to, especially in hospitality, we tend to only do business with the people we like and we have some type of affinity towards. And what a great opportunity to get to know new people. And those relationships can pay dividends down the road. You're a great example, Scott. I mean, I stopped you. I remember I stopped you for a moment and you gave me your book. I didn't have a chance to get it from before. We talked for 15 or 20 minutes. And now we're doing this podcast together where if that wouldn't have happened, if Teneo didn't have that event, I would not know who you were. I would not have met you. We would not be able to do business in the future, at least until we had that introduction. And now look where we're at. So good point. Very good point.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I really enjoyed that event. I enjoyed meeting you. And you were the one who suggested, hey, because I had mentioned the podcast, you said, hey, I think I'd be a good guest on the show. And you talked about some concepts, and everything in this particular episode is, I think, a subject matter that we haven't touched on. And I always love working with and talking to people and getting some new ideas. And that's why the podcast is doing better and better. People are realizing, hey, we can get new innovative ideas, new different strategies, different formats, different models. And that's what this podcast is all about. So, Rob, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast. I thought you were smart when I met you, and you just confirmed it here on the podcast. You have some great ideas.
Thanks, Scott. It's been certainly a pleasure. I really appreciate what you're doing and look forward to the future.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
That's it for now. Thanks once again to eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. With the deepest catalog of professionals available, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, and if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.